Welcome to the EQ Fit podcast. Our mission is to equip people to prosper in every aspect of their life. Whether you're at home or in the workplace, we explore practical ways of improving success, satisfaction, finding balance, and building enjoyable and beneficial relationships. Thank you for joining us. If I say the word team, T-E-A-M, what comes to mind? Your favorite sports team, maybe it's your kids' soccer team, baseball team, volleyball team, basketball team. Maybe it's your team at work. Well, that's where we're going to focus today, is teams at work. And specifically, how do you measure the climate of your team at work? How do you know if your team is maximizing their potential? How do you know if there are gap areas or areas of dysfunction that could be addressed, but without measures, how do you know that? Well, that's our focus for today. Teams are the engines that drive organizational success, but not all teams function the same way or at the same level. Some teams may be dysfunctional. They may be mired in conflict and inefficiency, while other teams operate at peak performance. And when they do that, you see collaboration, you see them achieving goals, and they're continually learning and continually improving. Understanding the difference between these two extremes is crucial for any organization that wants to maximize both its productivity and its return on investment. But it's even bigger than that. It's about engagement. It's about retaining good employees. It's about creating a culture where people want to work and they want to put in their best efforts. That's what we can do if we can measure key aspects of team performance. Team climate surveys do that, or what I call team assessments. They provide the data-driven insights needed to diagnose issues, build high-performing teams, and sustain organizational success. And as always, I like to start with a true story. So let me jump in here. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to deploy team assessments, or what some call team climate surveys, for many different organizations. Now, please don't hear the word climate survey and just tune me out. I'm talking about scientifically proven data measuring certain aspects of teams that can profoundly change team performance. So if you're interested in enhancing performance in your teams, then please continue to listen. And let me try to share with you some experience, and really some experience of some of my clients. Now, I didn't start using this team assessment until I came across a set of tools that I found to be highly accurate and highly insightful. That set of tools is called Vital Signs Assessments, and it's from the company 6 Seconds. When I discovered these tools, it opened entirely new horizons of insight that I did not previously have for my clients. And so it really opened the door for some really deep work with teams. And as I've said, we talked last episode about the LVS 360, which is a Leadership Vital Signs 360 assessment specifically for leaders. And next time we'll talk about organizational vital signs, taking the vital signs of an entire organization. Now, the cool thing about this toolkit is that the 5 drivers of success are the same in every assessment. So you're keeping alignment and continuity throughout these assessments. And you're getting insight that you're simply not going to get anywhere else. So let me get back to my story. I engaged with a client to work with the leadership of that business, of that client, and create IDPs or individual development plans for each of their leaders. I utilized the Leadership Vital Signs 360 assessment to get the actionable data I needed to create that IDP for each of their leaders. When we went through the feedback sessions with the leaders and the owner, they absolutely loved the data. And if you think about it, most leaders love data because that's where they make a lot of their decisions. They don't just guess, they don't just intuit what decision should be made. They're always looking for good data so they can make the best possible decisions. So, decision makers in any organization are like that. They tend to focus on data, and this is something people have been doing for generations. This is nothing new. Leaders specifically like to work with numbers more than some of the people issues. Numbers are just easier to understand. They provide predictive capabilities and helps to kind of understand the likely outcomes. The human dynamic can be more difficult to understand. There's different personalities, different values, different skills, different giftedness, different motivators, different mindsets, different levels of emotional intelligence in different people, habits, behaviors. All of those can vary from person to person. So in short, people can be a lot more complex to understand than numbers are. So as we were completing the final feedback sessions with the leaders on their assessment results, a comment was made by the owner of the organization. This is what he said: "Wouldn't it be great if we could get this kind of data for our teams?" And he meant on the teams. And so I pulled him aside after the meeting and I said, "Hey, could we have lunch together tomorrow? I'd like to show you something." And he said, "Sure, that'd be great." When we met for lunch the next day, I pulled out a sample report of a team vital signs assessment. I opened it to the first page that displayed the engagement level of the team. And there were some other specific numbers related to team performance on that page. Now, this is the funny part. That's as far as I got. And the reason why? The owner reached over, snatched the report out of my hand, and started exploring it page by page on his own. Knowing him pretty well by this point, I just let him do his thing. I just let him look through the report, let him figure out what he saw in there that was of interest to him. I was available to answer questions, and he had some as he went page to page. And so after he had worked through the assessment, he just sat there for a couple of minutes, and he finally looked at me and said, "How soon can we get these done on our teams?" I gotta admit, that was probably one of the easiest sales I've ever made, because I didn't really make it. I mean, he kind of made it on himself. He made the sale himself. But here's why. He saw the kind of data that was available on teams, that really there isn't any way to get that data unless you have an incredibly gifted leader who is highly intelligent, highly emotionally intelligent, highly insightful, highly observant. I mean, basically, you see where this is going. You would have to have one of the prime leaders around to be able to really get this kind of insight into teams, and you still wouldn't get all the data. You still wouldn't get the important comments from people that are a part of this report. You wouldn't be able to answer the custom questions that go into an assessment like this. And you can create these custom questions that are important to your team and to your organization. So anyway, I said, well, you knowing me, let's start tomorrow. Let's go. Later on, I came back to him and I asked why he had made such a rapid decision to utilize this tool for his teams. Because I know his normal approach. It's to take some time, think it through carefully before he commits to anything. But his answer to me was simple but really profound. And I will remember this, I think, as long as I live. He looked at me, and here's what he said. I have known for years that we have gaps and challenges in our teams, but I had no way to identify the root cause of the issues. The measures in this assessment give me confidence that we can get the actionable data we need to improve team performance across our organization. That answer really struck me. It really resonated with me. And I love the term that he used, actionable data. So I stole it, and I've been using that term ever since. It is such a great way to explain the difference between data that is just data and doesn't have a lot of meaning and data that you can put into action steps. And so I did ask his permission to use that term, by the way. Just want you guys to know that. Anyway, we began a process where we did this assessment annually for each of his teams. It became a foundation for evaluating team performance year to year and for setting KPIs and specific goals for each team at the beginning of each year. So let's take just a minute and step back and start to identify the difference between dysfunctional versus high-performing teams. I think it's important that we take a minute and really focus on that, because the difference is whether your organization succeeds and can find sustainable success and have a competitive advantage, or whether you go out of business. I mean, it can get to that point. And I've seen many organizations go out of business because of dysfunctional teams. Teams that just could not operate within themselves and did not operate well with other teams in the same organization. So a dysfunctional team is often marked by low trust, poor communication, a lack of accountability, and a general absence of cohesion. And that's an important one that a lot of people don't think about. How cohesive is the team? Is there any toxicity in the team that is breaking down the bonds of cohesion? Is someone in the team creating a hostile work environment? Are there things going on that are friction points? So there's a lot to think about here. You probably are not going to be easy to identify those things. You're probably not going to easily identify those things if you're not taking some kind of assessment like this. It just trying to figure all of this out on your own, no matter how good you are. I don't care how many books you've read or how many seminars you've gone to. This is why these tools exist. And so when we look at a dysfunctional team, they struggle to meet deadlines, they frequently miss targets, they create environments where individual effort is prioritized over collective success. That's the me versus them kind of a thing, or us versus them. Friction is common, and psychological safety, which is essential for a thriving team, is missing. It's simply missing. The return on investment of a dysfunctional team is predictably low, with turnover, inefficiency, missed opportunities constantly draining resources. Okay, that's the unhappy version. Let's flip the coin over and look at the happier version of this. In contrast, a high-performing team is agile, motivated, engaged, and aligned. Trust is strong, feedback is constructive, and team members feel safe sharing ideas and concerns. That type of team, they are driven by shared purpose, shared values, and they are equipped to execute efficiently, to innovate, and to embrace change. High-performing teams generate far greater ROI, delivering consistent results. They drive innovation, and they create a positive organizational culture. I had a friend of mine who is part of a venture capital group ask me one time, how do we figure out this people side of things? How do we know what we're getting if we decide to invest in an organization as far as their leadership and their team performance? And I said, I can do those assessments in a week and tell you the second week. He said, no way. No way. Nobody does that. That can't be done. Well, I'm telling you right now, that can be done. It can be done fairly easily. All we need is for the people to engage with the assessment, to give us good feedback on that assessment. And from that, amazing things can happen. So let me break this down. What is the role of a team assessment? Why would you do one? Team assessments, like the one that I use, the Team Vital Signs from 6 Seconds, they're invaluable tools for diagnosing areas of friction and areas of dysfunction. They help us to really understand where the problems are, and they do it through what we call actionable data that highlights areas where teams are thriving and where they're struggling. And you want to know both of those. You want to understand your strengths of your team and where they thrive, but you also want to understand where they struggle, because the combination of those things makes up the current performance levels. And the more, just like an individual, I've got another assessment I use for individuals called Habit Story that measures both productive and counterproductive habits. Well, think of it kind of in that way. If you know what a team is doing that's productive and you know what they're doing that's counterproductive, then the more you can diminish the counterproductive behavior, the counterproductive decision making and actions, you can enhance the productivity. And it's just a simple equation. Now, people are not simple, but these tools make the process of enhancing the human dynamic and the team dynamic much, much easier than just trying to figure it out on your own. So it's more than just a diagnostic tool. Team assessments provide a roadmap for improvement, helping leaders create specific KPIs to develop clear action plans to transform dysfunction into high performance. And I'm not going to sit here and judge teams and say, oh, I'm going to label you as dysfunctional, I'm going to label you as high functioning. That may or may not be accurate. Every team is going to have areas where they do well, and they're going to have areas of dysfunction. The more of the dysfunction we can remove by first understanding what it is and what the root cause is, the better we can be functional and high performing. Now, assessments can reveal key team dynamics, including trust levels among team members, the degree to which they're motivated and they're aligned with organizational goals, and their ability to embrace and adapt to change. Those are some really critical elements to measure, because the more of those resources inside that team and those team members, the more functional they can be, the more high performing they can be. These kinds of insights are crucial for creating an environment where psychological safety and a culture of constructive feedback can thrive. Two elements that are absolutely critical for sustainable team success. So let me go a little deeper into those two. I think it's important to understand when I talk about psychological safety and constructive feedback. What am I talking about? Psychological safety is the foundation of high-performing teams. It's the belief that team members can take risks, they can voice their opinions, they can ask questions without fear of embarrassment, retaliation, or judgment. When psychological safety is present, teams are more innovative, they're more adaptive, and they're more cohesive. There's that word again. Things hold together better when all of these things are happening, especially psychological safety, because that's going to foster trust. And trust is, in my words, trust is the currency of getting things done, especially through other people. Teams are able to navigate complex challenges, and they're less likely to fall into dysfunction that can derail progress if there is psychological safety. Now, a culture of constructive feedback complements psychological safety by ensuring that communication within the team is open and it's aimed at improvement. There is a term that I love to use that I learned from a very good friend of mine many years ago, and it is assume positive intent. If you assume positive intent, a lot of the conflict and the drama and all of that stuff that can get ginned up within a team really kind of goes away because you're assuming positive intent. You're not assuming somebody's out to get you or there's negative intent there. I mean, it's a choice, right? Constructive feedback helps us with that. Now, Gallup has done some research that shows that teams that regularly engage in constructive feedback experience greater engagement and performance. Sounds like a win to me. And 6 Seconds has also done some research. High-performing teams prioritize emotional intelligence, which enhances communication and collaboration. When you put those two things together, that research together from Gallup and from 6 Seconds, it just makes all the sense in the world. These teams are more resilient, they're more productive, and they're more agile in the face of change. So let's talk about now the 5 key drivers of success that are measured in this assessment. Now, I can't go into all of the assessment and all of the outcome measures and the pulse points. And I mean, there's a ton of great data in these assessments. But I really want to focus on the 5 drivers of success because these are the same 5 drivers of success, whether we're doing a leadership 360, whether we're doing a team vital signs, or whether we're doing an organizational vital signs. The first one, and it makes sense, is trust. Trust is the bedrock of any successful team. Without trust, teams struggle to collaborate, to share ideas, or even take necessary risks. Teams with high levels of trust move faster, they communicate more effectively, and they handle conflict constructively. Conflict isn't confrontation. Conflict is simply things that need to be resolved. And the faster and better we can resolve those things, the faster and better we can move forward as a team. Trust impacts everything from decision making to problem solving. And the TVS, or Team Vital Signs assessment that I use, measures trust by looking at how confident team members are in one another's abilities and in their intentions. And there's a series of questions scientifically validated to measure trust within a team. The second one is execution, the second of the 5 drivers of success. Execution is the ability to get things done efficiently and effectively. High-performing teams execute on tasks with precision, focus, and with accountability. They understand their goals and they align their actions to meet those goals. Dysfunctional teams, on the other hand, are often plagued by unclear goals and a lack of accountability. The TVS assessment measures execution by evaluating the team's ability to meet its objectives and to deliver consistent results. So the third one, and you probably figured this one was going to be in there, is motivation. Motivation in team environments, it's engaged teams. They're motivated. They want to be there. They want to do the work. They have the energy. They're excited about it. Gallup research highlights that motivation is a key predictor of employee engagement, which in turn drives performance. We know from other research that an engaged employee will give you 2 to 4 times the productivity of a non-engaged employee. Think about that for a minute. Talk about capacity. If you can get more engaged employees on your teams, you can use multipliers on your productivity. So, as we talk about motivation, where does it come from? Well, it stems from a sense of purpose, alignment with the organization's vision, and a commitment to the team's goals. And could very well be shared values here as well. The TVS assessment measures motivation by analyzing how energized and how engaged team members are and how they feel in their roles and whether they see value in their contributions. The fourth one is teamwork. Teamwork is the capacity for collaboration, for mutual support, and for working together to get things done effectively and efficiently. High-performing teams work together toward common goals. They leverage each other's strengths, and they compensate for weaknesses. Dysfunctional teams, however, they may operate in silos or even compete against one another, leading to breakdowns in communication and in collaboration. The TVS assessment measures teamwork by examining the degree of collaboration and support within the team. And then the last of the 5 is change. And when I say change here, basically it's the ability to embrace and adapt to change, and change comes consistently. The only constant is change, right? High-performing teams are agile, they're open to new ideas, they're open to change, what I call change embracing. While dysfunctional teams often resist change, becoming rigid, unable to pivot when necessary, and frankly, a lot of times just stuck. They just get stuck in the same rut, and they think that the edge of their rut is the horizon, and it really isn't. The TVS assessment measures how well teams embrace change, highlighting areas where flexibility and adaptability can be improved. And this is an important one because I haven't gone deeper in any of the other 5, but let me go a little deeper here with change. Because change and the ability to embrace change is going to come out of the ability to navigate emotions around change. So change is not really maybe anybody's favorite thing to do. I mean, some people like change more than others. But the reality here is there's always going to be emotions generated around change. Well, the more that you can navigate those emotions for better outcomes, the more that you will be change embracing, and the more you can access some very, very important skills that are going to help you through change. Adaptive thinking, strategic thinking, logical reasoning, numerical reasoning. Isn't it funny how emotional intelligence skills open the doorway so that you can utilize your higher cognitive functions that are more rational and logical skills? Because I know that you have probably experienced a time when you were feeling very strong emotions and you probably said something like, I can't think straight, I'm foggy right now, hold on, I can't process that right now. That's exactly what's going on. I went a little deeper here on change because this is so critical to the success of teams. And there's so much good work we can do around this. So now we're going to really kind of wrap this up and think about, where do we go with this? Remember earlier when I talked about actionable data? Well, there's a reason for that. It isn't just actionable data to look at it. It's to do something with. And the key to effectiveness in any team assessment lies in its ability to provide clear, accurate, and actionable data. If you cannot get those three things out of an assessment, don't bother doing it. And that means talk to an assessment professional like myself to help you understand which of the assessments out there are good and will really benefit you, your leaders, your teams, your people, your organization, and which ones really are not going to do you that much good. There is so much money put into marketing assessments, and there are some companies that are incredibly good at marketing their assessments, and it sounds so wonderful. I'm not going to name any names, but what I am going to say, talk to an assessment professional like myself who's certified in dozens of different assessments to really find what's right for you and for your organization, for your teams, and for your leaders. Now, the data here must not only diagnose issues, but they have to be able to create the right path forward. That's what I mean by actionable data. If it can't create the right path forward in how to develop the skills that are needed because of the gaps, or help the team to become a higher performing team in this case, then it's not really all that helpful. You're gaining some information and some insight, but if there's no path forward, you're not getting the return on investment that you should be getting. Team assessments, like the team vital signs, generate insights that can be used to create specific KPIs that drive improvement. For example, if trust is low, a team can work on building transparency and accountability, which will help to build trust. And it can be as simple as building connection first. Maybe the team isn't connecting very well with each other. Maybe they're not communicating very well with each other. We need to be able to identify the root causes of the dysfunction. And that's what these assessments do. I wish everybody could experience one of these assessments for one of their teams, because I don't think you'd ever go back to not doing it. It's just so much good data that gives you so much actionable information and insight that really helps people. And my heart is always going to be for people. How can I best help people bring out the very best of themselves? Whether you're a leader or an individual contributor or a team member or a team as a whole or even an entire organization, it's all about people. Everything starts with people. So that gives you kind of an understanding of what can be done with a really good team assessment like the team vital signs. And it's not just about performance. It's about the things that really mean something to people. Engagement, motivation, long-term careers, long-term commitments. Yeah, okay, it's about return on investment, and it's about performance and all of that too. And that's why I always get tickled when I talk to my venture capital friend, because he says, but that just doesn't seem right. It's just, people are just complex. Yeah, okay, they are. Absolutely. But you know what? That's why people like me are here, to help others understand the complexity and make it simple so that we can really make a difference in people's lives. Because isn't that why we're in business in the first place? It isn't just about the money. It isn't about profit alone. It's about really achieving great things and doing that together. And talk about doing it together, high-performing teams don't just happen. They are built through intentional effort and consistent improvement. And it's why I do this with some of my clients every year. We do this assessment every year so they can see the growth. And then we share that with the leaders and the teams. We let them see where they are. And you know what? There's going to be some changes in teams from year to year. So there's going to be some differences from year to year. That's why these kinds of things are so important. Team assessments provide the critical data that's needed to identify friction points along with growth opportunities. And when they're used effectively, they offer a roadmap for cultivating psychological safety, fostering constructive feedback, and aligning teams toward shared goals and common goals. And that's what we want. In our crazy world where there's so many challenges, so much change, so many things going on every day, the value of having this kind of insight to help your teams become high-performing teams cannot be overstated. The difference between a dysfunctional team and a high-performing one is not only evident in day-to-day operations, but also in long-term return on investment for the organization. And every organization has an obligation to the people that work there. Are we doing everything we can as an organization and as leaders to foster the best environment, to cultivate accountability, to help people become the best person they can be, bring out the best in every individual? Isn't that a place where we'd all like to work, right? By leveraging team assessments, organizations can create the conditions for teams to thrive, ensuring that psychological safety, constructive feedback, emotional intelligence are at the heart of their team dynamics. And I have worked with teams like that, and it is a delight to work with those teams. Are they perfect? No, of course not. But they are attuned to each other. They are aligned around shared goals and shared values. And again, they are a delight to work with. And other people see that. Customers see that in that team. That's why I have one client that says, we're really sticky with people. Once people work with us, they really like us and they come back for more. And it's because of their team environment. It is because they have created this high-performing team, but they didn't do it without the kind of information that I'm talking about here in this Team Vital Signs assessment. So let me leave you with this. With the right data and a commitment to action, any team can move from dysfunction to high performance. I truly believe that. Delivering exceptional results and higher ROI for everybody. And ROI comes in many different forms. Thank you for joining us for this episode. If you have any questions about this week's episode, or maybe a suggestion for future episodes you'd like us to explore, please contact us through our website at eqfit.org. For more information and inspiration, connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube at EQFit.